We're chewing over some of the New York Giants' decisions and the direction of the franchise with special guest Ed Valentine, a Big Blue View. That's coming your way next on the Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode of the Locked On Giants podcast is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, credential member of the New York Giants media for Locked On, as well as for New York Giants on SI, which is where you can find my written work. And as always, thank you so much. Welcome in, actually, to my Blue Crew community members, to my newcomers, to my everydayers, and everybody in between. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And on today's show, we were supposed to have Ted Wynn on. Ted is going to be on the show with us Wednesday. I've already spoken with him. He will be on Wednesday, but I had to bump that show because I've got the great Ed Valentine joining me today. And, Ed, you guys, my everydayers know about, Ed and I, how we used to co-host this podcast together before he decided to dump me. And he's back. He spends more time with me now than he did when we were partners. But Ed, good to see you as always.
Patty, thanks for having me. I was getting all ready to be insulted that I was a substitute guest.
No.
And then you bailed yourself out of that jam. So
no.
Happy to be here as always.
You're never a substitute, Ed. Never a substitute, except at football games when I need a male voice to talk to, and that's only because we sit next to each other. Anyway.
Now, see, Patty, it was going so well, and now you've already made it go downhill.
Well, listen. Speaking of downhill, let's talk about the Giants. There's a lot to talk about. As we record this, it's Sunday night, so the show is going to air obviously on Monday, leading up to the Giants Steelers Monday night game. And Ed, I guess we can start there. We might as well start there before we get into the bigger scale problems that this team has. I don't know about you, but I'm not feeling good about this matchup. Just too many things concern me about this particular matchup. But yet I see 3% of the quote unquote experts who made picks for this game believe the Giants can pull off an upset. Do you see any path to victory for this Giants team?
Patty, before we even get into that, look, whatever topic we get into tonight, the Giants are not the Jets, okay? The Giants are not the Jets, all right? The Jets, we're recording on Sunday night, and the Jets lost to the Patriots. The Giants are not the Jets. So
the Giants still haven't played the Panthers, so let's wait on that. But anyway,
don't. I'm on a roll here, Patty. Come on, don't ruin it. The Giants are not the Jets. But look, is there a path for the Giants to win on Monday night? Look, everyone at Big Blue View picked the Steelers to win. I think it's highly unlikely that the Giants win, but there's always a path, Patty. The Browns beat the Ravens on Sunday. There's always a path for NFL teams to win games. If the Steelers' offensive line is beat up, they're maybe worse than the Giants. They're using 2 or 3 guys that weren't the original starters on that line. If the Giants can dominate the front, can force a couple of Russell Wilson mistakes and capitalize on those mistakes, then maybe there's a path. So there's always a path. It's more likely that it's going to be one of those typical Giants, prime time Daniel Jones falls flat on his face, running for an 80-yard touchdown kind of nights, and the Giants embarrass themselves. That's more likely, but there's always a path.
I like your optimism, Ed. I really do.
I don't know if that was optimistic or not, Patty. It started out as optimism, and then it
Kind of
meandered
dwelled, it tailed off.
its way into Daniel Jones falling flat on his face.
All right. Well, since you brought Daniel, you did try. I give you an A for your effort. But since you brought up Daniel Jones, Ed, were you surprised last week, or this past week, I should say, John Mara came out and said that basically he didn't anticipate making a change at GM or head coach, but he didn't give the same type of ringing endorsement. Kind of actually punted on the topic of Daniel Jones. Were you surprised at Mara's comments?
Maybe not, Patty. Look, we're in year 6, and as much as John loves Daniel Jones, he has eyes. He has to see it. I mean, he has to understand that this is year 3 with Brian Daboll, who's a good offensive coach, a guy who's got a good reputation for working with quarterbacks. I mean, he has to see that there are things that need to get better on offense, and that one of those and that one of the things that is holding the Giants back is quarterback play. I mean, it's not the only issue. There are a lot of other issues with the Giants, but clearly, if you're going to be a winning football team in the NFL, you need a quarterback who, at least on occasion, plays above the situation around him and lifts a football team. And that, for me, is the one thing that Daniel Jones just doesn't do. He's fine when things are fine. He's good when things are good. If everything around him works, then he'll put up nice numbers. He'll do some nice things. When it breaks down around him, that his history has always been, when it breaks down around him, he breaks down with it. And that's what you can't have. So I wasn't surprised in a way, because, like I said, it's been 6 years, and John has to see it. He has to know that yes, he loves Jones, but he has to know that at some point the Giants have to do something different.
One thing, again, he didn't say that, or at least give any indication that he might do differently, was get rid of the GM and the head coach. I don't know about you, Ed, but I absolutely agree with that, assuming that that's how they, that they stick to that. I know they've said it in the past with, Ben McAdoo, Joe Judge, and so forth, but I absolutely agree that they should stick with this current regime. What do you think about, Mara's words?
Oh, I agree with you, Patty, but look, I actually wrote something that will be on Big Blue View tomorrow morning, and in part of it, I talked about that vote of confidence. And we know from John Mara's history with Ben McAdoo, we know from the history with Joe Judge, that he's done this before. He's issued that mid-season or late season vote of confidence, and then a few weeks later, revoke that coach's key card. We've seen it, but I agree with you. So really, it's John Mara saying, I don't want to make a change unless this coach and GM embarrasses me in some way that has nothing to do with football. I don't want, because that is what both Ben McAdoo and Joe Judge did. They embarrassed the franchise in ways that had nothing to do with winning and losing. And Mara's not going to stand for that. He's not going to stand for, for being laughed at in that way. But I absolutely agree. Look, I know you have issues with what Joe and Dabes have done. I have issues with some of the things that they've done, but they are still joined at the hip. They are still They know at least where they want to go. And it hasn't worked to just keep, you know, blowing things up every 2 or 3 years and starting over. And there's no guarantee that you can do better than what you have now. So ride it out. Let them make a quarterback decision here coming up and see where it goes from there. And then make a decision if you have to.
All right. Coming up next on the Locked On Giants podcast, more with Ed Valentine of Big Blue View. So please don't go anywhere. Hey, Giant fans, when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. They help you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but who might be open to the perfect role. 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours when they use LinkedIn. And did you know that LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier? Their newest feature helps you write job descriptions so much faster than ever before. So go on and find out why 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring by posting your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Hey, Giant fans, Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. It's easy to win real money this football season on Prize Picks. Which players are going off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long. And be sure to check out Prize Picks' weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts, like Taco Tuesday, when every Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. So what are you waiting for? Download the app, use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, with special guest Ed Valentine. And for those of you who are looking for the Ted Wynn show, that will be on Wednesday. Tomorrow, of course, we'll have the takeaways on the Giants Monday night game. Wednesday will be Ted Wynn. That interview is in the can, so it is coming, folks. And then, of course, Thursday, crossover Thursday with David Harrison of Locked On Commanders. And Ed, you know, in the last segment, towards the end of the last segment, you talked about issues that we have with, Brian Dable, with what Joe Shane have done. And I want to talk about one such issue that I know I have, and that is the treatment that Deontay Banks is getting. Now, for those who don't know what I'm talking about, Deontay Banks has kind of mailed it in at times, or been inconsistent, I should say, with his effort. And you see it on tape. And it's not just, the last week against the Eagles on the Jalen Hurts run. You saw it against CeeDee Lamb, in which, Jerome Henderson called them out. There were instances that I wrote about and posted on New York Giants on SI in the Bengals game. So there have been other instances, but the Giants feel that, we'll talk to him. And they did. The locker room spoke to him. Dexter Lawrence confirmed that. And the hope is that it won't happen again. Deontay Banks saying it won't happen again. And do you think that's good enough, or would you have just benched the kid, even if it was for a series or a quarter, and keeping in mind that the Giants have three cornerbacks that are injured, Jackson, Flott, and Trey Hawkins, and of those three, one's already been declared out, with the other two, possibly not playing?
No, Patty, it's not good enough. Period. End of conversation. It's not good enough. Look, think back to the end of the Tom Coughlin era. Okay. I have my issues with the end of the way the Coughlin era ended. Okay. But when I knew that it was probably time for Coughlin to step away was in his last year when all of the stuff was going down. I think it was, all the Josh Norman stuff was going down. And instead of dealing with it, Tom Coughlin basically said, "Oh, I didn't see it. I didn't see it. I didn't know any of that happened. We need Odell in the game to try to win." And Tom, to me, was the only time I can ever remember Coughlin sort of selling his soul, sort of selling his beliefs, you know, for a player in the name of, I have to have this guy on the field to try to win. And and the fact that, to me, the fact that there are no visible consequences for Tay Banks is problematic. It's problematic on a lot of fronts. Okay, yes, they talked to Tay. And, people have asked me a bunch of times, is Tay Banks the new Eli Apple? And I don't think so. I don't want to believe that. I think their personalities are vastly different. I think Tay Banks is a kid who just lets his emotions and lets his disappointment sometimes get the better of him. But that kind of lack of effort is not acceptable. Yet Daboll talked to him. The locker room talked to him. Banks talked to the players. But how does Tay Banks look Brian Burns in the eye? Brian Burns was dragging himself on and off the field the other day against the Eagles on one leg. How does Tay, even when the game was out of hand, Banks was still out there doing that. How does Tay look Brian Burns in the eye? How does he look Dexter Lawrence in the eye when Dexter Lawrence is taking on 2 and 3 blockers, play after play after play? And here's the bigger point, Patty. One of the things that we just talked about in the last segment, or one of the things is, Brian Daboll and John Mara's vote of confidence and all of that. One of the things that Brian Daboll can't do is lose this locker room. If he loses this locker room, if he starts to have players sniping at each other and losing faith in his ability to lead this team, then he puts his job in jeopardy. And here's the problem. If this is twice with Tay or 3 times with Tay, what happens when somebody else steps out of line and Daboll decides, well, I have to discipline this person? All right. And this person might be a 3rd round draft pick instead of a 1st round draft pick that the Giants traded up for. Well, aren't you going to divide the locker room, and aren't you going to have some guys looking sideways and wondering why there's a double standard for a 1st round pick versus other guys? So what's the standard? What's the line? And how's he going to enforce it at this point? So you open yourself up to the fact that, are you running this team or are the players running this team? And if I can go a little bit farther, Patty, some of the stuff that Malik Neighbors has said in the last week, and again, I'm not saying that Malik Neighbors is a bad kid, because he's not, but his comment that I was open, maybe it wasn't intended to sound selfish. Maybe it wasn't intended to throw Daniel Jones under the bus, but it can be interpreted as doing both of those things. And you and I both know that if it can be interpreted that way, there are people who will interpret it that way. And my other issue with that is Brian Daboll saying, well, he was open, that can be interpreted as throwing Daniel Jones under the bus without having to say Jones's name. And it can also be interpreted as giving players free rein to do and say what they want without consequence. And So all of that bothers me because Dable's got to keep control of this football team, and he's putting himself in a situation where that's more and more difficult to do, at least in my view.
So I was just going to say, it's interesting you brought up the neighbors' comments because I was going to ask you about that next. But can this be interpreted, in your opinion, as maybe losing a little bit of a grip on the locker room, or are we just making too much of it?
I don't know, Patty, but it bothers me because this with neighbors, for example, I think this is, the whole thing about, even the concert a few weeks ago, and Brian, at the very least, I would have liked to have hear him publicly say, we understand that the optics of that aren't great, whether it was medically fine or not, which everybody I've talked to said, medically there was no issue with that, and we've explained to him that the optics of that aren't great. We've explained to him why the optics aren't great. Instead, he just sort of shrugged his shoulders and moved on. So there's frustration in that room. There's frustration in that room. There's no finger pointing publicly out loud, but ask these guys about the offense and they don't have any answers. They say, well, we keep working on it. We practice this. We work on the deep shots. We work on the explosive plays. We do this. We do that. We just don't connect on them on game days. And what is that if it's not some sort of criticism of the quarterback without saying his name? So I don't know if that locker room divide has already begun, but I think Dable, by not sort of stepping on it a little bit now, he puts himself in a position where if it gets any louder, he's going to have a hard time, tamping it down.
Yeah, I was going to say, every time you ask Stable about something brewing, oh, it's been addressed in house. Those comments will be private. I get not wanting to throw somebody under the bus, but like you pointed out, in a way, they kind of are. And I don't know if you probably agree with me when I say this, but just once I'd like to see Dable take a little bit more accountability and say, for example, oh, a lack of effort just won't be tolerated by any player, whether he's a first round pick or an all pro or
Right.
It's, you know what I'm saying?
And at the very least, because if look, benching a guy for a series or two series, even if the Giants are shorthanded at cornerback, is that one or two series going to hurt you more than leaving the impression with your players? And I'm not saying Dable is, I'm just saying that it's possible that he is. Is that one or two series more important to you than making sure players understand what the standard is and who's in charge?
Yeah, good point. Absolutely. All right. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more with Ed Valentine about the New York Giants, the state of the New York Giants. Don't go anywhere. Hey, Giant fans, if you are looking for those hard to get tickets to a show, to concerts, or sporting events, look no further than to Game Time. With the New York Yankees in the World Series, there's no hotter ticket in the New York area right now than the World Series tickets, and Game Time can help you. They make finding tickets you want faster and easier than ever before. They offer seats at competitive prices. With Game Time, there are no hidden fees. You're going to know exactly what you're paying for before you check out. You'll get clear images of your seat views, and you'll also get event cancellation protection. And if you should find the tickets elsewhere in the same section and row for less, Game Time will give you 110% of the difference. So go on and get the tickets you want. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm Patricia Trainer, your host, with Ed Valentine, a Big Blue View. And Ed, just getting back to the Steelers Monday night game, how nervous are you about the matchups at offensive tackle? It looks like it's going to be Joshua Zudu at left tackle again. On the other side, it looks like it's going to be Jermaine Illuminor, but Illuminor hasn't been able to practice the last couple of days with a sore groin, which, you just don't want to play a guy that's going to have to push heavy things around. You don't want that type of injury. How concerned are you with that particular matchup?
Patty, I think you have to be concerned even if Jermaine Illuminor is 100%. TJ Watt the guy's a future Hall of Famer. I mean, the guy's a great, great player. Brian Daboll has over and over throughout the week praised TJ Watt. The guy's a game wrecker. The Steelers, have good players on the other side too. When it comes to Josh Zudu, the Giants looked into signing DJ Humphries. It sounds like that's not going to work out for whatever reason, and let's be real, money's probably part of that. Certainly probably part of that. The Giants don't have a whole lot to spend. And, Humphries is been around long enough. He's probably not going to play for the minimum. So we'll see what happens there. But, on that side, Azudu had two really bad reps early in the game. Looked like he settled down a little bit, but you can put Azudu over there. You can put Chris Hubbard over there. You can do whatever you want. Without Andrew Thomas, the Giants offense, such as it is going to be compromised because they're going to have to keep an extra tight end in. They're going to have to roll protections to that side. They're going to have to chip. They may have to leave a running back in, to help. So they're compromised no matter what they do on that side. And that's just, that is what it is. And I've written this at Big Blue View too. It's like, Patty, you and I had this conversation way back in OTAs when we first saw at OTA practices Josh Zudu lining up as the second team left tackle. And they're not serious with Josh Zudu as the backup left tackle, are they? Again? And obviously they were. And obviously it's not a great idea. And they made that bed. They're going to have to lie in it. And, and it is what it is. But hopefully Illuminor can hold up. Hopefully the Giants can run the football a little bit. We'll see how it goes. But those, the edge versus tackle matchups are not good. Don't make me think about those too much, Patty. I do want to get some sleep tonight, as we record on Sunday night. Don't make me spend too much time thinking about those. That'll either that or I've got to think about Aaron Judge trying
think
to
about Aaron Judge.
Series.
By the way,
that's not fun either.
How many people are going to have picture-in-picture during this game? Because I think the Yankees are playing at the same time, if I'm not mistaken. So
yes, they are.
All right, Ed, let me ask you this. The trade deadline is coming up. And I know I don't believe in tanking. I know a lot of people are like, well, just tank for draft picks. I don't believe in it personally. I don't think Daboll believes in it. But you do have an opportunity to potentially move a couple guys on this roster who maybe aren't in the long-term plans. Darius Slayton, receiver, and Azeez Ojulari, an edge rusher. You should be able to get at least a day 3 pick for both of those guys, maybe a little bit more. Who knows? But that being said, would you look to move those guys or would you stand pat again, knowing that right now at edge rusher, Thibodeau may or may not be back after the bye. It depends on that wrist. That's I think I saw it was like a 4 to 8 week recovery. And then you have maybe some injuries at receiver that you got to keep an eye on.
Patty, look, the readers and listeners at Big Blue View, there's a segment of them that kill me every time I bring this up. Every time I bring up the idea of trading Azeez Ojulari or Darius Slayton. So your listeners might as well kill me too. All right. When it comes down to it, your readers might as well kill me too. Look, the deal is this. What the Giants have to do, and I'm sure before the trade deadline, if it hasn't happened already, I'm sure that there will be some back channel discussions between Joe Shane, between the front office and Ojulari's representatives and Slayton's representatives. And, they're not going to get a contract signed, but what they're going to try to gauge is both of these guys. Yeah, they're good players, but they're both in the final years of their contract. I know that Darius Slayton is a really good guy. And, he's been with Daniel Jones ever since they've been rookies. But I also know that simmering underneath there with Darius Slayton is this feeling that he's never really gotten the respect that he deserves or the paycheck that he thinks he deserves. And given a chance, Darius Slayton's going to go hit the open market and see what he can get. And if you know that Slayton's going to hit the open market, then you're probably not going to be able to bring him back. So if somebody will give you a 4th or 5th round pick for Slayton, you have to take that. It's really the same with Ojulari. I would love to keep Azeez Ojulari as a 3rd pass rusher. I get the theory, as a rotational guy, but pass rushers have immense value. I read the other day, I was going back and reading about Ojulari. There were teams asking about Ojulari in the summer. All right. And Ojulari's being productive now that he's getting to play. Azeez Ojulari is putting himself in position for a nice paycheck at the in free agency. And with Kayvon Thibodeau and with Brian Burns and with Dexter Lawrence and all of that, the Giants are not going to be able to give him that paycheck. So more than likely, he's going to go test free agency as well. So it's the same situation. You'd love to keep those guys. They would help you now. They would help you next year, but they're probably not going to be Giants next year. And what gets me, Patty, and I'm sure you get this all the time, people will go on and on about, well, you can't trade Ojulari and you can't trade Slayton. And then what happens in March when both of those guys sign elsewhere is all of Giants fandom will be screaming, why didn't they trade them at the deadline and get something for them? So that's just it. If the Giants don't think either player is coming back, then they have to listen to offers. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what it does to this roster for the final 7 or 8 games. What matters is doing the best thing for their future.
Which is what they did with Leonard Williams a couple of years ago. And even though, people were like, oh, that was a great deal and everything like that, but it did create a hole on the team, which quite honestly, they haven't really filled, at least consistently. They don't really have a really solid option next to Dexter Lawrence. So, maybe in the draft, but I say, because you don't know where the Giants are going to draft. And if they're, so intent on wanting to win games, they probably won't be in a top 5 spot for a quarterback, which is a dire need. They may have to go the free agency route for quarterback, which I'm hoping they don't have to do. And then, they can, like I said, they need a cornerback. They need interior defensive line help. They need a lot still.
So get yourself some assets, and maybe you can use some of those assets. If if they want Cam Ward, the quarterback out of Miami, and they need to go from number 9, say, to number 2 to go get Cam Ward, they need assets to do that, because they're going to need assets to do that, and they're still going to need some assets to try to build the football team. So it's not anything about this year when it comes to Ojulari or Slayton, and it's not anything about anything against either one of those players. It's simply about, if those guys aren't going to be Giants next year, then, get something for them now, because you just have to think about, you got to think beyond 2024.
Yeah. I mean, the one danger to that is that you're conceding to the locker room that, maybe that's it. But you're absolutely right. At this point, if they continue to lose, and let's face it, the next 2 games, Pittsburgh, Washington, they're not locks to win those games, and
No.
and I don't even know if you can write in ink that the Carolina game is going to be a definite win with how things are going. So I totally agree with you on that, but we'll see, and we'll find out probably in the next few days if Joe Sheen's going to do anything. It'll be interesting to see. Ed, as always, want to thank you for coming on with me. It was fun. And I went easy on you. You notice I went easy on you because I know you're gonna be up late, as am
You're
I, on Monday nights.
you're getting soft, Patty.
That's the thanks I get for being nice to you. Oh, man. I can't win with you, I'm telling you. All right. Anyway, that's gonna do it for us here, Giant fans. Make sure you tune in tomorrow. I will have takeaways from the New York Giants game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Hopefully, they won't be, you know, making me ticked off like I was last week when I did the takeaways, but hopefully they'll be, reasonable. So anyway, thank you for tuning in. I'll see you tomorrow. Be sure to check out Ed Valentine's show. I'll be on his show. And also, if you get tired of reading my stuff over on New York Giants on SI, which I can't imagine why you would, check out Ed's stuff. It's pretty good. So, all right, Giant fans, we'll see you soon. Take care.